Click the links for Odysee, Bit Chute, join the channel, become a valued member, or support the channel through the various other coffee and other crypto, whatever. Some people you have a visceral reaction to. They feel dirty, they look dirty. It's like you can smell them through the screen. That would. I mean, he plays it up, It's just not. I'm not making fun of the way he looks exactly. I mean, he does his shtick pretty well. Which I don't understand. If you're on camera, why wouldn't you at least like you're not just a radio voice, you're on camera. Why wouldn't you try to get in a little bit better shape to be on camera? I don't know. Anyway, so you think Klein and Stocastic propaganda. He's one of the many mouthpieces for the puppet masters. Klein is kind of slimy. He tweets out a bunch of buzzwords that are trendy and strawmans Joe Rogan's name with all these buzzwords. So the puppet masters will try to deplatform Rogan from whatever platforms he's currently on. And Rogan is got a show that's out selling, I think, Fox and CNN combined, which, isn't that much of a... Fox and CNN combined, those are so much the party line. Like, oh, here we're slightly to the right of the party line. And like, yeah, stunning and brave there, Tucker. So Klein is signaling to his masters that he is, of course, very firmly on the plantation, and Joe is a wrong thinker, which everyone already knows. I mean, Joe is like, oh, he's hanging out with that far-right Alex Jones with those damn Chi-Coms, that Alex Jones. Like, you think Alex Jones is far... You think Alex Jones and Joe Rogan are the far-right guys? Are you out of your fucking mind? What's the color of the sky in your world? Do you think Alex Jones is far out? What do you mean? There's nobody further to the right than Alex. Yeah, get on Odysee. You will find out that people are legitimately far right on Odysee. It's a whole new world. Get on Odysee and Gab. It's going down the rabbit hole, coming out the other side. That's how far Odysee and Gab are, which is freaking awesome. People need that. It's like ice water douche time. Anyway, Klein is trying to get some eyeballs his way because he still has a huge social media presence. I think YouTube alone, he's got through the combined channels, he's probably got 10 million people who are watching his stuff, which translates into millions of dollars in YouTube ad revenue alone, plus whatever other advertising he's doing, and plus people just literally donate to him, which is a weird flex. When if you're literally a millionaire, can get people to donate to you. That's credit to him for finding people that gullible, I guess. On social media ebbs and flows, and he used to have more energy behind him. The winds of social media shift. I think people kind of saw he took off the mask, and people started to see him for what he was as his takes started to become more, I guess, globalist and slimy. So people who were somewhat moderate, he left them with a bad taste because he realized this Klein guy is not a really good person. In fact, he might even be a bad person, but we're just going to move on from him and not stick around to see just how bad he is. He seems like a whiner, and he really, really bitter. And, there's a visceral reaction to seeing him for a lot of people. Gross. He feels gross. Anyway, so I saw the Crowder clip where he and Crowder were supposed to talk about some issue. So Ethan panicked because he, probably didn't want to do the research into the issue and really get his ducks in a row. And at the last minute, he substituted another mouthpiece. So is Crowder expected to substitute his own mouthpiece? And maybe they should just go to a different platform altogether and go in a closet, close the door, and talk about it. No, I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. Why would you're set to go talk to somebody? You're like, oh, no, I want to have somebody. Well, Crowder didn't want to talk to Cedar or something. Because probably most people didn't, he's not the guy who started the interaction. It's childish to think, I'm going to substitute somebody. Okay, well then Crowder can substitute somebody else. Friggin' the whole thing is stupid. So Klein used to be a bigger name. Social media moves on. And he used to do these middle of the road stuff pre-Trump derangement syndrome, and then Trump just broke his fragile little mind. Honestly, the guy seems like he's got issues now, legitimately depressed, which I can't wrap my head around someone who's driving a Ferrari and depressed. That's a weird cognitive dissonance. And the thing is, now he's just fully a globalist shill. I watched his latest video. I watched some of it as much as I could. It's not easy to sit through. It's got 1 million views, which I can't understand unless it's like his podcast highlight video. He's got only 3 million views, 3 million subs on the channel. well, which is a lot of subs, but he's got 1 million views for each video, which is, so that's a ratio of 1 to 3. That's a huge watch ratio, which doesn't make sense unless people are just playing it in the background. I don't understand how he gets a click-through rate that high, because he seems really bitter about everything, which, to have people just showering you in money is how weird how you can be bitter. I don't wrap my head around at all. Anyway, so he's got this huge show, and he's a mouthpiece for Susan Wojcicki. So, he's probably going to be pretty safe for a while. At least most of his channels will be safe. But his channel doesn't have the same energy behind it. And even people in his comment section were letting him know, like, oh, maybe you should take a break. It's like, well, if you can't take a break because you take a break on YouTube, the algorithm punishes you. But I got a feeling like he could take a break for a month, or you could, like, I don't know, spend 2 weeks. Like, really, the first thing is, state of mind and state of body. It's like, you got to just eat less. You got to put down the junk food. Like, you don't get to be 300 pounds by eating vegetables. You're eating a lot of donuts, probably drinking whatever too much. The thing is, he's making millions from YouTube. It's like, you could take a week and learn a little bit about nutrition or vegetables. You should focus on vegetables, and you should move away from donuts. The dude should be living his best life, just having kids and doing all that kind of stuff. And he seems to kind of be eating himself to death and spurging out over Joe Rogan and Trump derangement syndrome, and the whole Wu flu thing triggered a lot of people for some reason. So I watched a few minutes of that podcast, and it seemed like it was made for far left Twitter kids. He also does something I see in globalist films and comics, is he pushes this diverse found family concept in place of the blood tribe family, which is a really creepy globalist trick they use. The goal: destroy family, destroy the tribe, the neighborhood, the nation. Everything they do is like this slow acid to the structure of society, and it's creepy as hell because his audience is clearly damaged, broken, fragile people. It encourages them to move away from their real blood family to this imaginary digital one, which is like, they're not your family. They're just, oh dear Lord, oh God. That's the visceral reaction I'm talking about. Just ugh. The thing is, we're not allowed to mention what their initial issue is about. Someone's saying, like, Joe Rogan doesn't even know who you are. So the puppet masters say that is not allowed. Obey your betters. Do not question the man behind the curtain. If you ask questions, you get kicked off to Odysee, Rumble, Bit Chute, Brighton, the platforms for people who question the narrative. YouTube is a place where there's a source communicating to an audience, but there's a third party who sits between them and decides what is on the spectrum of allowable opinions. That, as I pen these notes, I was listening to an Odysee stream with 3 people who were kicked off YouTube, and there were 400 people listening to a live stream on Odysee because people are desperate for diversity of thought. Klein is, in case you haven't noticed, a wee bit out of shape, which is probably normal, but he's 36 and he's attacking a guy in his 50s who's still in better shape than he is. I mean, like, give him 10 flights of stairs and put them both at the bottom. It's like, okay, now go, see what happens. This is the issue. He really should have just left this one out, because the optics is ridiculous. You have somebody who's focused on health and fitness, and someone who's focused on diets and soda and probably beer and weed. But Klein's audience is the health at any size crowd, so that they're screaming about body shaming and positivity, but they only care where it's about their team. They will turn it around on their enemies without a second thought. Like, principles, no, they have none. And hypocrisy, they have a whole lot of that. They're the kind of people who are like, they're proud sluts, but to call a slut is horse shaming, which doesn't make sense. If you're proud of it, to be called what you are, you shouldn't recoil in horror at that. But they'll gladly call people incels. Like, literally, single obese cat ladies will call people with families incels. The whole thing is freaking bizarre. It's as if, like, if I'm Swedish, you can't Swede shame me for being awesome. Swedes are awesome. There's no, yes, you're Swedish. Okay, that's fine. They're better than everyone else, maybe? I don't know. Better looking, probably. So I really don't see why Klein is so triggered by all of this stuff. He's making millions just from YouTube alone. Why does he act like he's depressed? He does have talent, but so did a lot of people before Trump derangement syndrome made them all insane. And maybe it's because Rogan is more influential these days. Rogan's got probably more influence than, like I said, more than CNN, which is making CNN very, very much unhappy. CNN is triggered by people on social media because all of a sudden there are people on social media who are literally more influential than Brian Seltzer at CNN, which blows their minds. But CNN is kind of on the decline, where the age of social media people reporting the news, with a laptop and a home theater kit, it's like, well, you're getting news that just is all news is going to have some bias, but it's good to have a counter to the mainstream CNN propaganda, which is, it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Anyway, it also feels like some of Klein's old audience has kind of outgrown him and went to Rogan's side of the aisle. Rogan is this new middle-of-the-road perspective with hot takes for the normie that are about as spicy as Jell-O. He interviews people from a variety of perspectives, which is what you're supposed to do if you've got a social media platform and you want to keep the audience engaged, is you talk to everybody. You don't just stay in this far-left echo chamber. So if anything happened like that on YouTube, they would just 1984 the video and block the channel. I don't know too much about what Klein covers on YouTube these days because it was really boring to listen to his podcast, even though it had 1 million views. But there are a lot of left-wing normies out there who enjoy hearing the party line. Everyone on both sides likes confirmation bias. And, judging from the comments in his section, the audience seems young and naive about everything. And I expect that they're going to eventually outgrow his stuff. And I don't think his audience will be replenished, but it doesn't matter. He's going to make millions from social media, from advertisers for a long time, even if he does outgrow some of his audience. He's from this older generation of YouTube. Like even 5 years ago, there was this big group of left wingers who were laughing at SJWs because it was probably in 2015. They were firmly in charge. They were always firmly in charge, but maybe they didn't know it during Trump. So they were laughing at SJWs because they felt comfortable doing it. SJWs were so friggin' cringe. And then Trump derangement syndrome hit and they lost their minds. And also YouTube decided that they didn't want any anti-SJW channels on anymore. And they got rid of almost all of them because they were thinking politics is downstream from comedy, which I guess it is. And they knew that they didn't want a repeat of Trump 2016, so they got rid of all those channels that helped Trump in any way. That's why Alex Jones and a bunch of others got kicked off all platforms. So there was this massive shift for that end of YouTube as all of those people just became openly left-wing, and truth be told, they became really boring. And a lot of those people who were like the 2015 YouTube anti-SJWs, like I don't even remember some of their names, I checked on them, and they're doing like video game stream reviews. So they still get views and they're still making a ton of money from YouTube, but it's different. It's like the energy, their influence. Like they're still making tons of money, but the influence for them. Who's that guy who he rolls around on a chair? I don't remember his name. He rolls around on a chair and he does this. He used to make fun of SJWs, and now he's like doing video game streams that are getting tons of views. Like people just want that pop culture, but it's like, is that what you set out to get on YouTube to do? And he's trapped in a golden cage. He's making so much money he can't abandon YouTube. But it's like, I know that's not what he set out to do on YouTube. But he's driving a Ferrari, so it's like you can't knock it. But I know in the back of his mind it's like, I'm sure the thing is, there are people on the left who would like to make they're on the left. They want to make left-wing videos, but they occasionally also want to make fun of the left, SJWs, and that's not allowed anymore. Because to do that is like, oh, bro, this is really not the time for you to be like a Chad hater, incel, or this is a bad look, my guy. Yikes, my guy. This is a bad look to like take a nuanced take. There's no nuanced takes on the left. If you're on the left, you're firmly on the left, and it's so easy to get kicked out. So if you're on, like if you're a shoe on head and you're firmly on the left, but you come out with a nuanced take against, I don't know, like. There was a split in 2016 over Bernie and Hillary kind of stuff, and it's like, oh my God, how hard did the left wing have to sell out to abandon Bernie and put all their energy behind Hillary? I felt bad for the left to look at Hillary and like, you guys are really putting your energy behind her? Like, you sold out Bernie? And to be fair, like the young crowd did not sell out Bernie, and the older crowd immediately did because they're looking at somebody who can win. It's like, Yeah, you win. You had a chance of winning, but at what cost? No, Bernie was never going to get elected in 2016. There was no chance of that happening. Maybe he'll run in 2024. He's only about 250 years old, as is Biden and Trump. Maybe I'll run for another. No, Biden, please don't run for anything else, or Kamala for that matter, or Trump for that matter. Nobody over 65 should be running for office. Maybe that should be in the Constitution too. What is it, 35? Maybe there should be an upper limit. 65 should probably be the upper limit. That way you've got a good 8 years of being solid, or 64, make the math easier, or 62, I guess would make the math easier. Maybe that should be the upper limit, like 62 would be a good, there's a good, we got people who are like, Biden has dementia, and Trump doesn't have dementia, neither does Hillary, but they're old. They're really old. And, almost 80, your decision making is still good, but it's slower. And I'm not sure we want that in the White House. We're like somebody at 60 would have a little bit, I don't know. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.